the larger society, there's a lot of skepticism and pessimism and sort of controlled emotion. And do you think that creates an infrastructure that doesn't allow us to ask these deep questions about, why do I feel this way? How can I feel? Like, is there something more? Like, I need it to be concrete. I need to be able to see the thing that's going to make me better. I can't just sit here and feel it.
Well, I think, unfortunately, for some people, they have to really reach almost like a rock bottom of despair before they will allow themselves to be open to what we're talking about in terms of that awakened awareness, that whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be religious. It just has to be some way of allowing yourself to be open to ways that can help you, right? That was why I was talking about mindfulness earlier, because for some people, that's the language that they can relate to. That will sound scientific. That will sound concrete to them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think has been very helpful with Lisa's book, is that she's bringing that very concrete science to this idea of, as you put it, we are hardwired for that spiritual awakening. But sometimes it really requires a real desperation before we will allow that to happen. And you're right. The society around us typically doesn't want to talk about that, doesn't want that to be something that we should focus on or we should be open to. We would often call woo-woo, right?
Yes.
Instead of it, and certainly not the thing you get taught in business school or science or anything like that. But I believe that when we cross paths with someone who opens that door for us, then people will find, people I experience anyway, will be open to that when they start to see results of relief, right? Mm-hmm. And that is concrete for them, regardless of what other people may say. And I think that hopefully most people will actually reach that point, and they'll be open to that, and they will encounter someone who can lead them on that path. What Lisa calls trail angels, right? People who can help you on that path, and you just have to cross paths with them at some point, or else you just keep suffering.
What do you mean by relief? Like, how would you describe the feelings or the sensations of relief?
Well, I think for me, relief is a sense of connectedness with others, a sense of having some value and meaning and purpose in my life, feeling light, not like I'm carrying a heavy burden. And you know that feeling of being in the zone,
the flow.
In the flow. Yeah, I think that's a good way of expressing relief.
For me, I describe it as a sense of peace, right?
Yes.
Where that's why when I meditate, I find that to be so helpful, because if I can get all of that monkey brain chaotic thought, out of my head long enough, I feel a sense of relief because I feel a sense of peace. I'm not feeling like I'm being pulled in every direction and I'm trying to remember every last item on my to-do list. I'm open to just the sensations of what is going on around me, which is why it's so wonderful to go for long walks, in a big park somewhere where I can just relate to nature and just, feel that sense of that world around me, but not all the things that push at me and pull at me, every day.
Do you think that when you are going through an experience of depression or deep sadness, that's the time when you have to maybe also question not just the depression, but what is the spiritual meaning? Like, is that the time to say, is this a spiritual crisis that I'm experiencing, this deep depression? Because some may say that's not a good question because it's not, like, depression is a clinical, what's the right word?
Well, it's a clinical response. Yeah, and I think what Lisa would say is there's different forms of depression, right?
Yes.
So chemically,
Exactly.
a basis, in which case, medication is the most helpful response sometimes to that. But when it comes to, life's experiences or trauma or things like that, then I think she would say this awareness, that this awakened awareness we're talking about, and the spiritual experiences are probably the most helpful way to deal with it. But you have to be open to it, and you have to allow yourself to experience that. And if someone can convince you to give it a try as a means of therapy, and you do experience that relief, then you can realize that, hey, there is something to this.
Well, what if you decide, someone's listening to this podcast and they decide, oh, I never thought about a priest as someone I could speak to about my depression or my anxiety. And then they go and they seek someone out. But that person does not have the knowing about the relationship between, your faith and spiritual pursuits and depression. They are equipped on the religious side, but in terms of, those tentacles of understanding that depression is a suffering, they may not have that understanding. So they don't get what they want from that person. What do they do? Like, is there what should you do? Like, if you go to a church and you feel like, I feel rejected here, or I don't feel like I fit here, or I don't feel like this person understands me. What should they do?
They should go and see Sue-Ann.
Or you.
I think the best thing we can do when we feel down is to go and help somebody else. I really think that is a spiritual practice. I think that is the most healing thing. When we are connecting with somebody else and giving of ourselves to somebody else, we have a sense of worth. We have a sense of being part of something bigger, of making somebody else's life better, which feels so good, And I think that generosity of spirit is healing for me when I'm feeling down, for anyone when we're feeling down. So I don't know that it's always about, somebody else needing to have the answers. I think the answer is go help someone.
Lisa talks about it in formal terms. The way she talks about it is altruism. But she says that just like we are wired for spirituality, she says we're also wired for altruism. And so I know it can be really hard when you're feeling really down or truly depressed.
And you have no energy.
Yeah, and to say, I'll go and help somebody. But even the smallest actions can make a difference. And somehow we are wired that when we do that, we actually feel better. And so, as Sue-Ann said, and it can start feeding on itself. So the more I help, the better I feel. And that is one way for people to pull themselves, not to pull themselves, but to benefit and to feel some relief from that despair.
And we only have to do one thing, right?
What do you mean by that? We only have to do one thing.
So sometimes, especially when we're feeling like we're carrying a heavy load or we don't have the energy, we feel like, oh, I can't do that. It's too big, right? There's all these things that I would have to do in order to be able to go out and help somebody. But we just have to do one thing at a time, because we almost always feel like we could just do one thing. And we do that one thing, and then we can do one other thing, and then one other thing, and one other thing. And then we've done something amazing, and we've made a connection with somebody else.
Right.
And we've seen the divine in them.